Today's episode is brought to you by our company, NanoChomp Marketing Strategy and Analytics. We help product and marketing teams solve problems and experience growth using data and approachable AI. Visit nanochomp.com to learn more. In this episode of Soundbites, we talk with Hugo and Meredith Nolasco, founders of Elite Human Performance, which is Durham's premier private personal training studio. They talk us through moving from New York City to Durham to launch their business and how they survived the pandemic. They take us through what they learned about growing and scaling such a personalized experience with world-class service and attention to detail. Meredith and Hugo highlight how goals and mental resilience are foundational, not just for them on their entrepreneurial journey, but also for their clients to get amazing results. Whether that's a high-performance athlete reaching the apex levels of their sport, or someone looking to be more active with their grandchildren. This is a great episode, and without any more preamble, here are Meredith and Hugo.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to another episode of Soundbites, a podcast where we sit down with really great guests and talk about all things business, entrepreneurship, marketing, and strategy. Today on the podcast, we have Meredith and Hugo Nolasco, owners of Elite Human Performance, an elevated personal training experience in Durham, North Carolina. Meredith and Hugo have a combined 25 years in the health and fitness industry, training everyone from athletes and Wall Street execs to parents and families. So they started Elite to bring everything they learned and wanted to improve about health and fitness and make that available to folks here in North Carolina. And I'm lucky enough to call them super close friends of mine. So Meredith and Hugo, thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Oh, super excited to have you guys on. So the way we like to kick off every episode is really, and I think this is the first episode we've had two people on at the same time. So
That's true.
We're breaking new ground
Love
here.
it.
But the way we like to start off these podcasts is really just to tell us a little bit about your past, what got you into fitness, and what got you on this path.
Okay, well, I'll start off.
Yeah.
I originally, the first time I was getting into kind of my own personalized fitness program post athletics, because I grew up in the court, on the field, I always said I would never be a personal trainer. And that was over 20 years ago. But my original path I thought was going to be business, and then I changed my major to teaching. And long story short, post-college, I decided I was going to dabble in personal training, see how it went. And that was almost 20 years ago. So I fell in love with it. I fell in love with helping people, and obviously fitness and gym culture. And I've now had the privilege of working in different business models here in North Carolina to start for a decade, and then in New York City for 7 years before moving back and opening Elite.
What about you, Hugo?
Awesome. So my story is a little bit different. I found a big part of my identity through sports growing up as a kid. It wasn't the smartest. I was A's and B's just to make sure I could be on the field or on the court. But I always knew from a young age that the gym held a special place in my heart. And so I've always wanted to open up a gym. Getting into personal training happened 10 years ago, right out of college. I think it was an interesting conversation between my mom and I after graduating of, hey, I'm going into personal training. And Gettysburg College, at a 4-year degree. And she was like, what do you mean? I think her and I were both expecting to get a cushy job on Wall Street. And instead I ended up at Equinox on Wall Street at a gym. But for as long as I can remember, owning a gym is what I wanted to do. I love serving people. I love being in the gym. Something about mentally and physically getting stronger every day has always motivated me, and seeing people grow. And so I think this is kind of always my path, whether I had seen it at the time or not. But it's no surprise that we are where we are now.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because Meredith, you didn't want to go into training. Yeah. So what about, maybe the industry was sort of keeping you from it?
I think I always viewed it as like it was my time. The gym became an escape for me, and especially post-competitive athletics. It was an out, and it was, I put on my headphones, I'd get in there, and I remember seeing other trainers and being like, how can we do this all day? Because I viewed it as my time. And I had a couple of coaches in my life that said, I think you would make a great coach. And maybe partly because I was athletic and I grew up in that arena. And I truly went into it with, you know what, I'll get my feet wet. I'll see how this goes a couple years. The average trainer only lasts 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And then that was it. I fell in love and that was it.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think people get into it, go for 2 years, wash out? And what have y'all done that's made you persevere beyond that time period?
I think it's twofold. One, I think there is an initial love of fitness and enjoyment of the gym setting that probably all trainers across the board will say that was a springboard into it. But for a lot of coaches that will just say, don't make it or don't make it past that 2 years, there's never this transition from just an inherent love of fitness to an actual love of and purpose in serving others. Like, you, to be in this industry long term, you have to get to this point where you truly enjoy and find purpose in helping others, because you are so others focused all day long. I mean, we average 8 to 12 clients each per day. That's a lot of time that is one-on-one. And so you can love fitness all day long, but if you genuinely don't enjoy and have a passion for helping people, you will kind of diffuse. I think that the other thing that comes to mind is, just from a financial standpoint, I would never recommend to someone getting into coaching for the money. Especially right off the bat, if it's a big corporate box gym setting, they're taking a huge chunk of your hourly rate or what the customer is paying, and you're trading your time. So there's only so many hours in the day. So to be able to get to a point where you are, let's label it, as a little bit more affluent in this industry, it does take a while. It takes a certain clientele. It often takes certain locations based on price point. And so I think those two things combined just kind of weed people out right off the bat. And then I'll let you handle the other part of that question. Was, what have we done differently?
Yeah, like how you endured past that barrier. And I think you slightly started to answer it.
Yeah. I'll just even piggyback off of what she said, because I can look at this from the personal training manager standpoint, which I was at Equinox, and bringing on a numerous amount of trainers into the industry. And, you know, when you're in that interview process with them and they're starting off with, hey, I just love working out, it's kind of like the first red flag, right? It's great that you enjoy being in the environment, but what you find is that, you know, here's a personal example for me, is I enjoy training in the morning. I like to get up and get moving. The majority of our clients now are 5:30 to 2 p.m. So what you enjoyed now gets pushed, right? And so that's just one factor of the lifestyle. But I think the lifestyle component of it for a lot of people takes them by surprise, because after training 12 clients in a day, and those are hour sessions, to then want to train that next hour for yourself is really challenging, right? And I think that's something that a lot of people don't think about when they go into it, is, do you want to spend that extra hour there to clean the gym or to do your own workouts as well? Do you have that same motivation? So that's just to piggyback off of that. How have we done it differently? So I think getting to the point where we are now, having enough years in the industry. So I've got 10 years since I started professionally coaching. She's got 20. We've been able to get to a point where we understand what we're able to do, knowing the boundaries that we need to set to avoid burnout, right? And so for a long time in New York, we decided that we would end our days at 2 p.m. So we would go from 5:30 a.m. straight through to 2, and we'd have our evenings. Now, owning our small business now, it's not the same where we had that much control just yet, but we're hoping to build a business that we do have that time back. But I think, you know, inherent in what we do is the building of resilience, right? It's going through every day, every week, and being adaptable, right? I think there's some days where you have clients that say, hey, I need to move this, I need to move that. And a day where you thought you could work out at 2 p.m. now becomes a day where you're booked up till 7 p.m., right? And so I think it's just being adaptable, giving ourselves grace, and then also on the days where you don't want to work out, being persistent on those days. And so you just do that day after day, week after week, and endure. And, you know, you look at it for the long term. You know, this isn't a short-term gig. It's not a summer job that you can get good at. It's something that you learn as you go. And the better you get, the more you learn how to how to endure, how to endure over the course of a season, a summer, a year, multiple years, and you gain confidence in yourself and your own ability.
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys both mentioned working in New York at Equinox. That's very different from Durham, North Carolina in a lot of ways. What did you learn about that experience? Maybe the pros or the cons that sort of led you on this next path to opening your own gym. Like, what made you make that change? I want to make that change.
I think it was a convergence of several factors. One, we went through COVID and we were up there during COVID, which was a different beast in and of itself, and new territory. But it also introduced the opportunity to do virtual training, which ultimately made part of our transition possible. Because otherwise, we were giving up and essentially a full client roster to start from scratch at a location that, even though I'm from Durham and I knew the clientele, I knew the area, it's still you're giving up your business, you're giving up your livelihood. So the virtual training made it possible for that transition. But I think we were truly able to get our feet wet and see the ins and outs of a large scale personal training business, and especially his experience in management. And we kind of picked and choose like what aspects of how that business was run would be feasible in the model that we wanted to create, and making sure that every person that comes in our gym truly feels like they are valued. They're not just a number, and that we are optimizing their experience in every single way. So, and Equinox does luxury well. It gives you a ton of exposure to a vast repertoire of clientele, which is always beneficial in a personal training experience. The more different types of people that you can train and have exposure to, the better. So,
yeah, and I mean, I can add on a little bit to that, where seeing that you probably have a lot of small business owners in here that are starting their own businesses. The beauty of it is that you're starting your own thing from scratch. So you get to make a lot of the decisions on, the color schemes and how you're going to run your processes and what's important and what's not, right? And so there's the positive of that. There's also the challenges of our business isn't one where we can just typically up and leave, right? Your clientele is typically in person. And so when we transition from New York to Durham, I mean, you're starting completely over. So you could have had a great business in New York, you were thriving, you were saving money, and now it's back to square one, right? And so that transition was pretty challenging. But I think one of the things that really helped us is being pretty clear on what we wanted to establish, what the vision was, personally as well as professionally, what things that we saw were adding value to the client experience and to the trainer experience. And so one of the things, just to give you an example, is we only do one-on-one personal training. In Durham, typically you see a lot of semi-private or group, and that was something that we wanted to stay away from past experiences and just the quality of service that's able to provide versus what we're able to give when we have one-on-one time with clients, whether that's nutritionally, in the gym, whether there's things that they're handling outside of that business-wise, right? There's so many aspects of what we do besides just training that we're able to really key in on because we saw the vision of what we wanted. We're able to put those pieces in place and now get to just execute on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because beyond training, right? Like your outcome that you're selling is overall performance. So it can't just be just the training. It's everything that has to be around it. And you mentioned, learning from your past experiences, what you've seen work in other places, grabbing those core principles, deploying them for yourself, having those challenges of, we're in a completely new location that is heavily reliant on clientele in a location. So it's effectively starting over, but with your found skill set and processes. What has been the biggest difference or biggest challenge besides that you've experienced moving from places like Equinox to now starting your own business right at the beginning or end of this global pandemic that limited your ability to have one-on-one contact with people?
Yeah. I think from the business standpoint, just logistically, we would kind of joke about how everything is going to take twice as long and cost twice as much. So to do that transition, a move looking at commercial space. And it's the atmosphere of small business now, especially starting a brick and mortar, is no longer, a handshake and a contract. It is thousands of dollars down, personal guarantee, and basically a urine sample by the end of it. I mean, it's a lot. And so I think that there were logistic challenges there. But from a vision standpoint of the gym and what we wanted to create, going from that business model, a big box gym where we had, like at my location in Manhattan, there were over 60 trainers and thousands of members. So you had a certain culture and constant interaction with people that is beneficial. And in our model, it's us with one of our clients, very focused for that hour. So trying to develop a sense of community within a private model that is high service, low volume, that can be a little bit of a challenge in that regard.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. For folks, how would you describe Elite to someone who's never been to your gym? How would you describe what's different? I know it's, low volume, high touch, high engagement, but, is there some special sauce, maybe not secret sauce, but something that makes you guys different than some other private training or personal training options out there?
You're the wordsmith. So.
The first thing that comes to mind is our attention to detail. Everything from, I think when you walk in, I've had numerous people describe it as Zen. It's very, our color scheme is very classy and Zen feel. You feel like you're walking into a different time zone, a different experience where the world is out there and it's you and your hour inside the gym. So from that down to just what we focus on and address with clients from nutrition standpoint, constant mindset and habit change to programming. We're going to talk about their sleep habits. Like we always say, like any detail left undiscussed is left to chance. So we're truly looking to optimize every piece of their human performance, whether they're just looking to be able to play with their grandkids or play pickleball on the weekend, whatever it is, so that they feel like they're living life to its fullest. So I would say our attention to detail.
Yeah, and I would use the word personalized. And I think that word gets thrown around quite a bit. Even like the word luxury, right? I've lived in Florida and every place is a luxury apartment complex, right? You've been in some and you go, that's not luxury, right? And so when we use the word personalized, that means not just, hey, you're coming in and we're going to modify an exercise for you, right? It's not as simple as just, we're going to change a couple things here and there. It's a really all-inclusive look at your lifestyle, your capability, injury history, all the way down through nutrition, your history with nutrition. Everything that we do is based on the individual. So we can have clients that are Boston Marathon runners and treat them a certain way and know when we actually have to pull people back from doing too much to someone who gives themselves maybe a little too much grace and has that extra glass of wine more often than they don't. And that's kind of pushing them in a different direction, right? And so every client that comes into our facility is getting personalized treatment for what they need, right? They're getting a plan prescribed for them. And I think that really separates us from even the other gyms in the area that offer one-on-one, right? We go really deep into knowing about their families, knowing about their jobs. I mean, I learn more about different industries just from the clients that I work with as opposed to any other source, right? And so we are completely invested in our clients and their lives, and are invested in their success.
And I love that. Like both of you touched on that same point too, that really you're focusing on what is the goal, what is the outcome for that individual, not how do I take a template workout plan that's split, push and pull, but really focused on, this person has a goal to be able to run around with their grandchild more effectively. This person has a goal. They want to run a marathon. This person might be an elite jujitsu practitioner and is trying to make sure that they are doing the right strength exercises to continue to push that and pursue that without having injury or being able to mitigate injury. And I think that is a real differentiator based on people that might just take a template, push it out, and then send you on your way and then correct your form here and there. That's a huge differentiator. So where do you typically go to attract new clientele? How do you retain and attract your client base?
So one benefit we had in moving from New York here, since I was a trainer here before, about a decade ago, I did have a pool of former clientele that once they found out we were moving down here, were eager to get started. So that was a blessing for us. And then in our industry, I would say probably like a lot of service industries, once you get so many years under your belt, you really want about 95% of your new clientele being off a referral. It's the ultimate compliment. And if you focus on doing your job well, people talk, right? So we do have a great location that's right near very high net worth neighborhoods. And so we tend to attract a lot of those individuals. And it really, I will say we have done very minimal marketing or had to, which is a blessing in and of itself, because we really try. I think relying on referrals also holds us accountable, that we are doing our jobs effectively, and our retention rate is really high. I mean, I was in New York 7 years, and there were clients I had for all 7 years, and I continue to train virtually. So it's been a blessing. We haven't had to rely on that very heavily.
I would say as a marketer, that makes me sad, but I think that's actually perfect for your business model because there are so many clients we have where we would kill for more like referral traffic and people who have, refer them based on the great experience that person had. So I think that's the way to do it, especially for your industry. And I would say give yourselves credit for picking the right location that's very near, high net worth individuals that can probably walk to your studio if they wanted to. So kudos to making that decision.
Add on to that too. Luckily for us, there's two of us, right? So we're not looking for super high volume. So our schedules are time based, right? There's only 24 hours in a day. We got to sleep at some point, eat, and continue our own workouts, right? And so we don't necessarily need to have an influx of 50 new members coming in. We just can't handle that supply right now. Or that demand right now. But hopefully in the future, right, we're looking, and maybe we can talk about that as well, what we're looking to do with our gym and the vision of where we want to go. But getting eyes on us is going to be important, right? And so we may not have a huge marketing plan now because there hasn't been a necessity. Mm-hmm. But I think with where we want to go in the next, 3 to 5 years, I can definitely see that becoming a more integral part of our business model for sure.
And one of you mentioned wanting to form that sense of community with all your people too. And I think as you scale and you're able to do that, you continue to grab referrals and you become a really desirable community to be a part of, which you probably already are, right? But so as that expands, you'll be able to, tax your time beyond what you can actually do and have to think about what scaling looks like. No, that's really interesting. One of the things you guys said too was how, since so many of your clients come from different walks of life, you effectively know a ton about a lot of industries. So you effectively end up becoming a pseudo management consultant and therapist at the same time, right?
Oh yeah. Therapist should be in their resume somewhere. We could write a book. We would also plead the fifth if we were ever called to court as a family problem on all ends.
Is it taxing? Can it be emotionally taxing to maybe wear all of those hats for all of your clients?
Honestly, I would say yes, in the sense that it calls you to be on all the time. I mean, to put it in context for a lot of people, especially now with many people working from home, if you could imagine having 11 or 12 Zoom calls or coffee meetings straight throughout the day.
Yeah.
one-on-one with people. That's a lot of energy. So even when you do feel like you're genuinely connecting with individuals and that the chemistry is good between coach and client and it's a give and take, it's still a lot. It's very demanding.
I'm curious because, your job as trainers is to like help with mindset, help with motivation. You can't force somebody to do the workout. And I know we've talked about that in the past, but how do you guys stay motivated as business owners? Maybe when things are stressful or tough, like what motivates you guys when you're having a tough day?
Bills.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah, that's a hard question. What motivates us? I think we go through seasons, and being in the industry for so long, you're gonna have times where you do have 20 people standing at the door say, "Hey, it's January 1st, I'm ready to go," and then you have lulls. Like New York is a great example. A lot of our clients would go away for the summer, right? And so you'd have an off month where you go, "What's going on? I'm used to waking up at 5:30, and now all my clients are gone," right? And so you kind of get used to the ebbs and flow of the business. And, not to say that we're perfect at all. There's times where I definitely go, "Hey, we need to get a couple more clients here." Right. But I think that, how we stay motivated is just the vision that we have, where we want to go. We are the only ones that are handling our marketing, our sales, our actual operations and our one-on-one sessions. And, I think what helps me when I think about it is the investment that I have in people. We are blessed to have clients that we truly love, right? So we spend time, and I think this is something that doesn't get talked about as well, is it's not just the 12 hours with clients, it's the prep for them, right?
Yeah.
It's thinking about their program, thinking about how it affects their lives. And so you get invested in people. And I think for me, that's why I get up in the morning, is thinking about what I've got at home and what we're building here. And then the vision that we've got for the gym and where we want to go and all the people that are affected by us, right? We've got right around 60 clients now that we work with on a week-to-week basis, and so there's a lot of people counting on you too, right? And so that's more than enough motivation for me to keep going.
Yeah, I think when you asked that question, the first thing that came to mind was there is no choice. This is what we do. Like, motivated or not motivated, this is our calling. This is our purpose. And that's part of coaching too, of like, well, you don't lean too heavily on a motivation factor in any regard. It's a lot of discipline and just probably getting into the mental zone. Okay, don't think about it. I am exhausted. I got 10 clients ahead of me, but this is what we do.
Yeah.
That's to the point you just mentioned, the illusion of choice, right? I think people think about small business ownership or entrepreneurship and go, "Oh, you can drive a nice car, you can take vacation when you want." I mean, we've taken one vacation since we opened, right? And that was a week we were looking at emails and answering clients, right? So yes. I think that there is an illusion of choice, but once you make the decision that, hey, I want to be successful, we want this vision to come to fruition, we've got goals that we're trying to shoot for, that takes precedence, and you focus on those things and kind of the habits line up behind that.
Motivation is it's fleeting, right? Just by definition, any motivation is fleeting. That's when like discipline, perseverance, grit have to take over. Or like your ultimate drive, your ultimate why of wanting to be able to deliver for those people has to take over and go beyond any of those fleeting moments of motivation. And to the point, this has been a theme we've had for, the last 10 guests. People always see on Instagram, it's like private jets, suitcases full of money, Gucci belt. Like, but that's not the reality at all. It's like, can I pay the bill this month? Can I pay our vendors this month? Are we going to have electricity? Do I have to sell my car for food? Like, these are the real world situations that we see every day. We had someone we were talking with just the other day who was talking about like what the Instagram versus reality application of entrepreneurship and the struggles that go along with it that you don't usually see. They don't hit the LinkedIn feed.
Yeah. And whether people voice it or not, you essentially traded the 9 to 5 for the 24/7. Right. Yeah. And the burdens, especially from a financial standpoint, are always there. And I think initially for the first few years, because you're still trying to navigate your own KPIs and be able to, project for the next year. But if you're starting from scratch, you don't have forward data to be able to compare apples to apples. Correct.
Right.
So I think that can certainly be challenging. And there is this illusion of that, that it's this glamorous lifestyle. But I think it's also been the ultimate challenge of delayed gratification, because there's a lot of things in startup where you're putting up a lot of money up front, or potentially if you go the long route or leasing equipment, or, where you're like, wow, we just took on a ton of debt for the next few years. And the benchmarks to be able to check things off the list are not a month down the road. They're 5 years down the road. They're 10 years down the road. And even for people that constantly coach patience, persistence, grit, it forces us to really just hammer down, okay, this is our goal, and we're not going to get a taste of the fruits of that labor for several years, and that's hard, because a lot of people would not choose that. They complain about working for the man, but they don't want to take on
They don't want to take on the risk.
Yeah, exactly.
And we talked about this the other day too. It's like, even when you work with somebody else, all that risk is still there, but it's abstracted to you and it feels kind of comfortable, right? But once you actually see it and it's right there, it kind of it changes the whole thing. And you really have to enjoy what you're doing, believe in what you're doing, and think, okay, I love this so much that my reward is coming despite what it looks like right now. And I have to be able to, forego that little piece of motivation, keep the discipline, keep the path in place, stick to your principles, and push forward. It's a real difficult challenge, and it's great to see that you guys have been able to do it really successfully, and you're powering through. You're continuing to tick those boxes as you go.
Yeah.
Speaking of vision for Elite, you talked about how that really keeps you motivated, keeps you on the path. What does the future look like for y'all in your business?
Well, ultimately, hopefully within the next 12 to 24 months, look into expansion on our brick and mortar. Not only just to have additional space for our business model. Currently, we have independent trainers. It's a model that's very popular in New York. We're still very selective we want elite level trainers, but it allows them to optimize, their income from a financial standpoint with their clientele, and also keep it a personalized feel. Again, very low volume. So to have additional space, but also start to dive into a membership model that will allow for that community feel, 24-hour access, and then also, honestly, some additional passive income for us. We're trading time for money, and we're a little one on the way. We want to be able to have more time there, and just long term, we're not trying to work 60 hours a week, So it'll give us some options and some more bandwidth.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough question because we're juggling so many balls in the air right now. I think expansion is kind of the big fancy one that we're looking at, right? I think that it shows the growth that in the scale that we've been able to build this business, and we've only opened our doors. It's been a year, 14 months since we started the brick and mortars. And so I think expansion is something that's on the horizon for us with the demand that we've gotten, and just an ability for us to give our clients even more value. Yes, it does give us time as well, which I think is an important factor. But even with that, it's about really catering to the clients and what's really going to be beneficial. Right now, we have clients that come to us 3 days a week, and then they go to another gym or they work out at home as well. And having an opportunity for them to come and jump on a treadmill or do their cardio there and still have that piece of accountability helps us monitor them and them stay focused on their goals. So the expansion, I think, is one thing. We're always looking for partnerships that are going to be beneficial for clients as well. So we just created a partnership with Meredith Health. They're a diagnostic labs blood company. And so what they do is they allow us access under the hood for our clients to see what else is going on, right? So we do an in-body at our gym, which allows us to see skeletal muscle mass, body fat percentage, things that we can control within the gym with alongside of obviously lifestyle habit changes. But what Meredith Health allows us to do is to see under the hood. We can check gut health. We can check anything from thyroid levels to testosterone levels, right? So we get another peek into what's going on with our clients outside of the gym that can really be affecting their results inside the gym. And so we've got partnerships that we're always on the lookout for. Like she said, we're looking at always bringing on trainers that can help with the demand. One side of that is a business perspective of, growing elite. The other side is actually helping out trainers. We really believe that the model that we offer trainers is not only the most financially beneficial for them, but also gives them complete ownership of their business, right? To be able to work when they want, not work when they want, take clients when they want. Now, we all obviously have rules and, things that we want to follow as a brand. But we really empower them to kind of get a taste of being their own business
Sure.
Entrepreneur, business owner, without all the overhead that we've already taken on, right? And so providing a space for trainers to grow their businesses. I think that those kind of hit the big major ones. Maybe down the road, franchising. I think one of the perks of our business and what we've created is that we're able to get into small to mid-sized markets that a lot of the luxury gyms just aren't willing to do, right? So if you
Sure.
see a Lifetime Fitness or an Equinox, they're usually in New York, in LA, in Miami, in big cities where they know they can capitalize. But little markets like Durham that are growing, that have a lot of potential, a lot of people that are moving away from those big cities just don't have what we have to offer. And so potentially down the road, franchise into some of those mid markets, I think is definitely possible.
No, I think that all makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned, you thinking about how do we deploy that membership model, and then you immediately started jumping into what are your blood markers telling you? Like what are these other elements that can be adding a lot more value to the end user that could actually justify having that type of membership model and really taking a good approach to their overall health. I think a lot of people are starting to become more aware of hormone health, what food is doing to that. I think people that are seeing what Dr. Huberman talks about, well, like is on the Joe Rogan Experience, the guy from More Plates More Dates, where they really talk about what these blood maker or markers mean and why it's important to know what they are. Because if you just decide, well, I'm going to start, crushing a lot of vitamin D or D-aspartic acid, whatever, that might not be a good idea for you. It might be, but you just don't know. And if you
Yeah.
just do it ad hoc, you don't know what the results are going to be. And you should probably think about that first. But that's really interesting. I think your model is really, really interesting with having the independent contractors that can take your approach, deploy it, apply it, and then again, building that sense of community is really interesting. I think that's great. And we're not one of those cities that touches the water. So yeah, we get overlooked by a lot of the biggest and most real luxury brands end up skipping right past us. So there's a good market, good demand here. I really like seeing what you guys are thinking about and how you're looking at deploying it.
So 2 questions we like to ask at the end of every podcast, and we did warn you just so we didn't throw you off. But so we'll ask both of you guys and you can both answer. But if you could have dinner with either the 18-year-old version or 25-year-old version of yourself, what advice would you give them knowing what you know now?
Well, I would have a lot of things to say to Maddie. Now, I think one thing that came to mind, though, was to fear less. I remember both my brothers are entrepreneurs and own their business. And my older brother, when we were going through the build out of our gym, because his company did it, I was just telling him how much I admire his work ethic and taking his business to where it was. And I said, how did you do it? Because there's this initial fear of all that. And he said, well, you just can't be afraid of rock bottom. And I think at that point in my life, I was afraid of rock bottom. And so I made a lot of decisions based on predictability, comfort, and a safety net, which were not necessarily all in line with my purpose or what I truly thought I was capable of. I knew it was safe. I knew certain decisions were safe. So I think I'd push myself a little bit. I push my younger self to take more risks and not be afraid of rock bottom.
I would probably want to have dinner or lunch with my 25-year-old self because he would probably pay my 18 self. But I think the thing that comes to mind, similar to your story, is stability. So for me, it would be keep going. And that's a mantra that we use even now. Because I think in our industry, there's just so much ebb and flow. I mean, there's turnover every year in the amount of trainers that come into the business and leave the business for a whole host of reasons. But seeing even what we've created already, just giving myself that constant reminder of, hey, just keep going. I know it's a tough season. You'll get to the next one. And then you get to the next one and it's a great season, right? And so always having just that mantra in the back of my head of like, hey, keep going. Things are going to get hard. You're going to persevere through it. You're going to learn from the challenges. You're going to learn from the perceived failures. You're going to grow from it. And those are going to be beneficial to you later. And just having that foresight to not let the temporary discomforts, the temporary losses dictate where you want to get up with your future.
I feel those are both really good.
Both great answers.
I feel like it's an amplifier, right? Like if you end up with a negative mindset or a scarcity mindset, it just keeps the spiral going all the way down and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like you're an antenna that attracts what you tune into.
Totally.
Yeah, and I would say, like, Meredith, your answer really rings true for me. And I think it's why I probably stayed at my corporate job for 3 or 4 years longer than I should have, because it was predictable. It was safe. You know, it's like cushy salary. It's like giving that up is really scary. And I think your COVID story is also very relatable to so many folks where it, you know, it was a horrible situation, but it forced you to really reevaluate what you were doing. And, you know, could I be doing this differently and better? And maybe it'll be harder, but the return will be better. And so I definitely relate to that. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, really great answers. We probably mentioned this in the pre-call, but we've never gotten the same answer twice, ever.
Really?
You know, like, we've gotten some common-ish themes, but we went like 20-something episodes without having even a similar touching theme. So that's we love this question because you'd think there'd be convergence, but there's not. There's really good answers across the board. So thanks for sharing. Yeah. I guess the last question is, what are you listening to? Like, what media are you consuming? What podcasts, books, what really consumes your limited downtime that y'all have?
Well, The Office.
Okay.
No, that's our relax time. No, we are such nerds with information and anything that pushes us as coaches in terms of informative podcast, motivational, anything like that. So we do love Lane Norton, Andrew Huberman, Peter Attia, Andy Galpin, and we have a plethora of books in our library on habit change. That's probably the area that we focus on with a lot of our podcasts. And then also we love good relationship questions and themes, and we'll dive into that. So
yeah, I mean, we're on the spectrum of both, right? Like we love things that are relationship oriented. So we're, love languages. And then on the other side, we're Jocko Willings with extreme ownership, right? And so we're kind of the host of all spectrums of genres. James Clear, Atomic Habits is another great one. Andrew Huberman, Mind Pump, Lane Norton. There's just a host of people that we look at that are credible in the industry that are actually putting out really good information. Because I think there's a lot of information out there as well that, someone can sound credible, but doesn't necessarily have the background to maybe state their claims. So we're always trying to find, what are our clients going to come in to the gym with in terms of questions, or, hey, I heard about XYZ diet or this exercise that I should be doing. And so we always want to be prepared for that and stay on the forefront of the fitness industry and where the principles and where the real research is guiding us. But yeah, on downtime, we're Netflix buffs. We're watching The Office just to decompress at night. We're just kind of like everybody else. We like movies, old school movies. We're all everything.
And I will say that Meredith and Hugo, both good follows on Instagram because they always do a date night question every week. So it's fun to see them.
So we're going to get one up there.
I'm very excited about that.
So your real content style is compassion done aggressively, is what it sounds like.
Kind of.
I often joke with my clients, like, we're the toxic relationship they keep coming back to. It's gonna hurt just a little bit. It's just, it's gonna be a little uncomfortable.
So I lied about last questions. So while y'all were talking, I was thinking, what about, like, you got to see a lot of quackery, right? Like a lot of like pseudoscience, fake stuff that pops up all the time. How do y'all react to that? And how much do you have to play whack-a-mole to smash that down? And I guess, are you going to start creating content to help smash that down?
Well, it's interesting because we do see a lot of it. But there are several people that I think do a great job. Lane Norton comes to mind in terms of he does spend a lot of time diffusing a lot of the BS out there. He'll come at it from an evidence-based standpoint in his experience as a coach, but also as a researcher. He has his PhD. He's going to attack the science too. So from a time standpoint, I would, if it's a topic that a client asks about that I know he has addressed on a professional YouTube video that I can quickly send, I'll give them my rundown and then, point them in his direction. I think those tend to come up more in conversation with clients than for us to cherry pick topics and then post about it. We do that some on Instagram. But I think an area that we could actually capitalize on a little more is teaching people, no matter the topic that comes up or the latest study that they see, a news channel drop on fitness or nutrition, giving people the tools to be able to decipher what is credible, why it's credible, and with research, what is going to be the most reliable kind of research. Was this done in a petri dish or was it done with a randomized human trial? And so that way they've already gotten the base tools so that no matter what pops up on social media, they can kind of navigate it more confidently.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I would say probably 90% of our consultations come in with some notion of what diet they should be on or what training exercises they should do, right? We're one of those interesting industries where everybody eats and everybody's moved their body to some degree. So everybody has an experience of, this is how I relate to these things versus if we were astrophysicists, no one's going to argue with us because, I don't know if there's any astrophysicists on here, but it's just an expertise that not everybody has an opinion on, right? So we do get a lot of that. I think to her point, there's so much content. And as a small business, there's only so many things that we can really do effectively. So on Instagram, we do try to provide education, and that leads into our Facebook. But I think the biggest impact that we can have is really one-on-one with clients, right? Addressing those when they come up, being clear and concise with, what the principles and the science actually states on these things, but still also being empathetic to their journey and what they may have experienced, right? So there's a lot that we battle, and I think the narratives just around health and fitness in general have kind of been skewed for a long time, and so we're always battling the 6 weeks into your dream body, the build muscle mass, jumping on the trampoline, right? Like there's so many different things that we battle on a day-to-day basis that I think from our standpoint, we go, oh, that was so 2 years ago, that was the big thing. And it still pops up, right? I've had clients come in and say, hey, am I going to get bulky from training? And I said, I've been trying to get bulky since high school football. So I haven't done it yet. I don't know that we can. And so just battling those things on a day-to-day and week-to-week basis is kind of our way of tackling it right now. Hopefully we can get to a bigger scale and really have bigger impact in the industry, which is a goal of ours. But just doing it on the one-on-one level right now.
Well, and I think that's smart too, because there's so much static online. And if you can search forever to find something that confirms what you want to be true or someone who's just parroting what you want to hear. So having those one-on-one conversations with folks who you have a relationship with, whose opinion, like they trust your opinion, so you can probably make a bigger impact that way, at least in the short term. But certainly understand on a platform like social, on Instagram, whatever, you can get a bigger audience. But yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So speaking of platforms, where can folks get in touch with you if they want to do virtual training, if they want to come, if they live in Durham and they want to come see you guys?
So we are on Instagram at Elite Human Performance. You slide in our DMs. We're all about that. We're on Instagram. We also have a website, elitehumanperformance.com. We're on Facebook. We're in print in Hope Valley Magazine. And maybe when we attach a link to this podcast, we'll put up our contact as well.
Awesome. And we'll include that in the description as well. So awesome. Well, Meredith and Hugo, thank you so much for joining and making the time. I knew a lot, but I learned even more about you guys. And that's always the fun part of these conversations. So thanks again for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.